Hey, you have time for tea? I think this is going to be a routine. I get on live and Violet, my great peer, is going to start barking. So I am going to be introducing you to Mel Flory, who I met over Instagram. And we are going to have a chat about supporting our homeschool teens. And we met in a discussion about yoga and meditation and relaxation. And I've learned that Mel is someone that hasn't actually homeschooled her kids, but for the last 20 years, she's been supporting teens to move towards their path, their passion. And she's used yoga and mindfulness and relaxation to do that. So let's learn together from Mel. And frankly, I think this conversation isn't just for teens. The older folk, those of us 25 or older. Okay, so Mel, it's so nice to meet you.
Hi,
Hi.
nice to meet you
So
too.
where are you coming from tonight? Was it
Okay, so I'm coming from
amazing?
Switzerland. I live in Switzerland, and yeah, so it's
Wow.
9 o'clock at night here, and yeah, so it's yeah, it's just been like really freezing weather actually. It just sort of went crazy colder
Cold. Okay, so
overnight.
freezing is not normal right now? You mean
It was really hot, so it went from 20
wow.
degrees to zero overnight. So it's like a
What's
really big
normal for you
temperature
right now?
changes. Well,
Yeah.
it should be snowing
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, there should be snow,
Ooh, that's
but there just hasn't been a
wild.
lot
Twenty to
anyway.
zero. I
Yeah,
actually know
I
somebody that's over
know.
on the East Coast
Yeah.
that had his or her kids in ski lessons
Mm-hmm.
this year, and they were at plus 20 skiing. You could see all the green grass on the side of the, well, they probably would call it a mountain, but I'll call it a hill because I live in mountains. Not the Swiss Alps, but I live in mountains. But they had a hill, a ski hill, where there was snow right down the path, down the middle, but no snow on either side, which was pretty wild. Really, really warm there. I think we lost Mel. If you have any questions about supporting teens, this is the place to do it. But I might actually just have to wait for Mel. Would someone confirm that they actually still see me? And tell me where you're coming from. Do you have homeschool teens?
Okay.
Hey, you're
Yes,
back.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem. I wasn't sure if it was you, if it was me. Could totally be me.
I don't know. It just dropped out. Don't know how.
Wild. So
Yeah.
I was just writing in that or sharing that people could
Hmm.
write comments or questions about how to support their teens, and we could discuss some of the things that they have questions about as well. But would you introduce yourself to everybody so we know you're in Switzerland? And I may or may not have said that you have two kids that are now grown and you support teens and have done so for the last couple dozen years.
Yeah, so and yeah, I live in Switzerland, and
Lovely.
I've been so my kids now are 24 and 18. So yeah, as you mentioned before, I didn't homeschool my kids, but I came from a very small village. So there's
Yeah.
only 600 people who live in this village all year round. So it was a very family orientated approach to teaching, and so there was a lot of special treatment with the kids, and I could, there was it was just an easy place to be, and it was something totally different to what I had experienced growing up. I
Yeah.
had grown up in a big city, where in a big school, and there was no personal assistance, and one of the reasons why I became a teen mentor in the first place is because there wasn't anybody in my corner. I really didn't feel that there was anybody who I could rely on. There was anybody I could talk to. There were guidance counselors, but there wasn't that person who could just make that difference. And so for me, it became important that I was able to give that back. So I was able to give an approach to young people that put them in the center and made them feel that they had choices, options, and they had a lot to offer. So that's how I started teaching. And I'm a creativity teacher, so I teach ceramics with my
Love
students.
it.
And so, already going through the creative approach, it brings out a lot more in a kid, and it helps them sort of adapt in different ways. And I don't know why the teenagers sort of found me.
Really?
I
love it.
I am trying to be an art teacher for high school, but the job that I found really kind of found me. And then I started working with young people, and young people were actually facing certain difficulties, and and then I started to connect with young people, and then it just became my life work. It just became what I was all about, and I started questioning a lot. I started to find out different ways, and then when I found that there was this way to become a yoga teacher for young people, I jumped on it, and so then I could start to give classes to young people and give them the resources that I'd never had. Because I think that if I had had someone that understood me, or just allowed me to accept myself for who I was, and going through all those stages, then it would have been a lot easier.
Absolutely. Ditto. Yeah.
And,
Said most people. And I think part of the beautiful thing in a homeschooled environment is that kids do know most of the time. Of course, there's always exceptions, but kids know that they are supported and that they're seen and they're heard, because they're literally seen and heard all day long. And yet we still are given these packages of, like you said, we don't know who they are. We're helping them to uncover who they are or determine who they are. And that's a lifelong journey for all of us. But as teenagers, to have somebody walk alongside you to help you do that, that would be so clarifying.
oh my God, my daughter just joined.
Lovely. Welcome.
So I just saw that. I think that as a parent, there is a challenging time when it comes to adolescence.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a certain point where everything is great, and then we sort of think, oh, we've got this, and there is an understanding between, for example, mother and daughter. There's an understanding, and then all of a sudden there isn't. And it's a very natural phase of adolescence. It's a very natural phase of the development, but there's a lot of mystery around it. There's a lot of people who are unprepared for that particular transition, and definitely a lot of parents who are not haven't got the resources to really be able to deal with that, and so therefore, when they talk about the teenager being what do they call it? They're being in the tunnel, and oh, he's going to come out of this tunnel soon, but let it go. They're in the tunnel, and it's sort of like you just have to wait and see what comes out at the other end of the tunnel. And
It's interesting because I have 4 kids. The 3 oldest are girls, and our youngest is a son. And I've had my older kids say to me about each successive child that actually, we missed one of the kids. One of the kids didn't seem to go into the tunnel the way the others did, but they would say that this is just a time, this is just a season, and they knew it. And so it was interesting to see how they would say that about their siblings, because it is an anxiety producing experience, recognizing it feels like you're losing a child. That's what it feels like. Like there's some element of, wait, who are they? What's going on? What are they doing? Spending a lot of time in their rooms or whatever. And actually that's normal.
Yes, and that's what a lot of people are not understanding, is that actually, I'm trying to find a good angle here, that it's not actually normal. It is actually normal, and that you need to go with it, but you need to also hold space, because they're not an adult. They still need you. Sometimes they can revert back to a child. sometimes they can be really grown up and they're like, I can do this and I can do anything. And then the next minute they can revert back to a child. So to be able to be there at that time for them and to be able to sort of offer them different things. So when I talk about yoga and I talk about offering relaxation techniques and stuff like that. In my experience, the kids that I've worked with, they actually really enjoy having those tools. They really enjoy being able to do that, and in an environment with others and also on their own. And that it really just gives them that control.
So what kinds of practices do you include? So you said yoga and mindfulness, but what would that look like?
So I've developed a program for the kids that I work with, and the program is yoga, meditation, and relaxation. More relaxation than meditation. It's hard to do meditation if they haven't practiced it a lot. And then the program goes on to talk about what they're passionate about, what is important to them. It's a program that was created through over 4 sessions, because what I really feel is that if we start with the yoga or meditation, we're a lot more open. We're a lot more open to a discussion about what am I feeling right now? How am I doing? What's showing up for me? What are the blocks that I've got? And really, I think that it's really important at that age to have connection with others and to have a connection with themselves and to identify themselves in other people and in what other people are going through. So it is an age where I think that it's important to create connection with other adolescents, with other kids of the same age, and
it's natural they want to.
Have those conversations. Because
so that's interesting, because this afternoon I'm doing a retreat, or a mini retreat. And it's a registered event, though. So if anybody's interested, they need to let me know directly, because they can't access it outside of this registration. But I'm going to be doing something similar with homeschool moms. And this has been something that I focused on for about 3.5 years. But for us to do mindfulness exercises, for us to do really, I say, practice the pause, or to have mindful moments in your day, to really know what's coming up for us, our thoughts, our feelings, the experiences we're having, to really see them or honor them. When we do that, it feels like we can connect into the deeper parts of ourselves. We can get clearer on who we are outside of our roles in our lives. So for us, it's a homeschool mom role, or the various roles that we take on, and really say, who are we in here? And are we serving this person as we're mothering? So whether it's for a teenager or if it's for a mom, this process of really paying attention to what's coming up for us helps us clarify who we are.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. But what I find is for young people to have an idea of that at a young age, and to be able to navigate all the obstacles and all the joy, the extreme highs and lows, because it's a bit like that. It's today everything's great, and then it's like the weather I said today. Yesterday it was snowing, and today it's sunny, and there's it can go from one extreme to the other, and emotions in a young person can be accelerated, and there's misguidance and there's misunderstanding. And I think that young parents of young people are not necessarily prepared either. So as you say, self-love and being connected with yourself, you are a lot more available.
I think the hardest thing, I speak to this so often, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of self-differentiation, but it's something that was brought to me in counseling or in therapy at one time. And the idea of, you are separate and someone else is separate. So our teen is separate. We are coexisting. We're spending a lot of time together as homeschool families. And yet they are still separate individuals becoming who they were meant to be. And we're separate individuals. And though we want to love each other and care for each other and honor each other, sometimes that's challenging to do because what we need might clash with what they need, or who we are doesn't quite fit with who they are. And certainly they're feeling that at a teenage point of reference. But as mothers that are with our kids so often, we want to feel like everything's always okay. And sometimes we have to be okay with them not being okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because you
Yeah,
want,
it
and
is.
our role is to make everything right.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to that moment of detachment, because the adolescent is automatically it's in his or her DNA. They're automatically preparing themselves, so they're packing their bags. I don't know if you know of Dan Siegel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he's got a really wonderful little video called "The Adolescent Brain," and it just depicts it perfectly of what is actually happening. So basically, what's happening is the child is absorbing as much information that they can get, and then as they become an adolescent, they start to prune. So the tree starts to prune. So they start to decide, and it's subconscious. It's not obviously, they're not on a conscious level. They're deciding what they're going to take with them and what they're not going to take with them. So, for example, a kid who did dance or something like that for years and years and years suddenly turns around and says, "I don't want to dance anymore." And that can happen. It's like, what? You've danced all your life. How can you not want to dance anymore? I don't understand. And what happened? Nothing happened. It's just that it's not a necessary part that they want to take with them.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's totally unconscious, but they're packing their bags to leave.
Yeah.
In a sense. And there's a lot of there's a mystery around that sort of part of the because even for the child it's scary. It's like, oh my God, some kids don't want to become an adolescent or an adult.
Yeah, the individuating phase. So yeah, individuating, like becoming themselves. Interesting time. Especially the first time that we experience it as a mother. Whew.
Yeah.
That's like a big, there should be more research done on the mother's experience of how to engage that. Because what we're told is just let go. It's okay. It's all right. But it doesn't feel okay. And it doesn't feel natural to let go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not the first instinct, especially if they push hard. But when you speak about Dan Siegel, I actually think about quantum physics. So I'll have to look him up when it comes to that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a book called The Teenage Brain, and so he's also has a very, very mindful approach to looking at adolescents, to understanding adolescents, and also from a very scientific point of view. So there's a lot of mystery also around yoga and things like that. So, oh yeah, but that's not going to help. But when some people need a scientific approach, some people need to know the science behind it, and it is scientifically proven that this is exactly what's happening. And this is, and it's a natural phase of development. And it doesn't mean you lose your child. It means that they will be going back and forth for quite a few years. And they do say that the adolescence does stop at the age of 25.
Yeah.
So 18 is not the cutoff age at all.
Yeah.
And certainly an 18-year-old thinks that he's got the best life, because they think that they can do whatever they want because they're 18. They don't have to follow rules anymore, but then they can also jump back in and jump out. And an 18-year-old is probably the scariest of ages, because it's the age where they take the most risks. And they're at adolescence, they go through this risk-taking phase as well. That is very, very scary for a parent. Driving too fast.
I have so many stories attached to that age. But for the sake of my children's privacy, I won't go there. But I 100% relate that age. Yep, so many stories. I'm with you. But it's kind of a necessary rite of passage, both for us and for them, to allow them to move, to keep growing, and to go do their thing. But at the age, some of the practices that you're speaking to, how do you think, especially as you've been doing research, understanding the scientific framework, I guess, the way to understand it through science, what's the value of doing mindfulness, or you were saying mindfulness, relaxation, and yoga.
Yeah.
What's the scientific benefits?
Well, the scientific benefits is that you basically it allows the brain to be more
Yeah.
connected with it, like, so it allows for connection, it allows for concentration, also to get perspective, just get perspective, because there's so many things going on at the same time. And there is, like, for example, an adolescent needs a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
Why? Because his brain is, or sorry, I keep saying his, their brain is pruning, and that there's a lot of information, there's a lot of things going on in their brain at the time, and they are not understanding why. Nobody really understands why the adolescents sleep so much. Like, you can put them on a holiday, they can sleep for the whole day and more.
Yeah.
And let's get out of bed, go outside, do some exercise, and you sort of harass them to get moving.
Yes.
When in actual fact, there is a scientific reason why they need that much sleep.
Yeah. So interesting that we have this discussion, because I had this conversation with so she's a professional teacher who's coaching homeschool families in how to help their kids learn how to read, from Tennessee. It's a podcast guest that I'm going to have, an interview released next week. And she was saying that she learned through Caroline Leaf. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Caroline Leaf, but she was speaking about how our neural connections get stronger when we aren't under stress. And I'm not going to think of the scientific words right now correctly, but cortisol release actually makes things harder for neural connections to connect. And the whole point of us learning is that neural connections, like the little neurons in our brain, are connecting to other neurons and giving greater capacity to absorb things. And that decreases with adolescence at a certain point, or there's more of a challenge around that time. And also cortisol levels increasing makes things more challenging. So it's interesting to hear you have this conversation at the time, only an hour after I'm having a conversation with someone else in a different part of the world about something similar.
It is. Well, depending on what world you're in, it's a small world. So,
Yes.
I find that, that with the students that I've been working with, absolutely love the relaxation part,
Yeah.
especially because they can lie down and they can disconnect, and that they, it seems to be a continuation of their night's sleep. But then there becomes an awareness of the body through relaxation and basically listening. And for me, it's all about them being able to listen to the signs, to listen to their body, to listen to what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And I mean, it's really going back to basics, but at the same time, through a more integrated brain, through a brain that's becoming more aware.
Yeah.
When you're a child and you are aware, certainly if you've been practicing these sort of things all the way through childhood, like I've seen kids who practice yoga and stuff through childhood, and then they get to those tween years and they're actually a lot more prepared. But the ones who are just sort of joining in at a later age, it takes a little bit of time for them to reconnect with their body. There's a lot of self-consciousness around body image. There's a lot of self-consciousness around the sexes, being in the same room as a boy or a girl. There's a lot of there's so many subjects. Like there's many subjects on that topic.
I only discovered yoga, meditation, mindfulness as an adult, like a well-grown full adult. And I had my biases against yoga because I saw it as like a spiritual practice that wasn't something I was familiar with or comfortable with other spiritual practices. And so I saw it as something that canceled it out. And now I've been dealing with a soft tissue injury since I was 19. And so that's a couple years. And I, for a long time, managed it with Advil. And as soon as I learned how to do yoga on a regular basis, I decreased my Advil use dramatically just by merely you could call it yoga, you could call it stretching, but it really is lengthening the muscle fibers and providing relaxation. And that right there was powerful in pain control. But also the like you said, the tuning into my physical body and just knowing like how am I feeling, not just in my heart and in my mind, what are my thoughts or what are my emotions, but how is my body feeling and what can I do to address that.
Mhm.
I wonder if I know I'm not the only person that didn't know how to do that for a long time and didn't attend
I
to those kinds of things. It's kind of routine, especially if you can add the words MOM to your roles. You're probably not spending a lot of time thinking about what do you need.
no.
You're usually looking around you saying, what do my kids need or what do other people need? But we need to be able to turn toward ourselves and ask ourselves, what do we need? And that includes, how am I feeling in my body too?
Yeah, absolutely. And for kids, just to be able to recognize feeling and not feel shame
Yeah.
around that word, and not feel shame about crying or feeling, upset about something or anger. And so the students that I've been working with recently, they basically their feedback and their comments are, when I'm really mad about something and I really think that there's an injustice, I am able to control my emotions a lot better, but control my
Yeah.
emotions in the sense that it's not affecting me. Not it's not becoming a priority.
Yeah.
And it's really that, so that overwhelm and the lashing out, certainly in those years, is can be pretty violent. And so, but with the self-control in those moments is lost. And so learning how to control your emotions to a point where it's not affecting you as badly as it would have, for me, that was an absolute
Yeah.
win.
That was a
And
personal
then
experience myself. But so, how would you actually include that with teenagers, or how would you help encourage teenagers to do that?
by 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 stopping, it's easy to say in
Yeah.
theory, but once you're in the moment, it's not so easy. But just basically trying to look at something from a different perspective. So looking at it from a different perspective, not as this person is attacking me. To think, maybe I said something that triggered something in him, and sort of taking a bit more of a detached position. It's very easy to say in theory and not so easy in practice. But the fact that they're doing yoga and relaxation and mindfulness puts them in a different state of mind. So they're
Right.
basically more calm. And so that, anxiety is another big issue
The
for
last.
young people at the moment. Stress, anxiety, stress of performance, even exam anxiety, or before they've got a big sports meet or something like that, and that fear that they're not good enough and everything like that. These are things that can be addressed through these sorts of
Yeah.
activities, because as I said, I do yoga meditation, but I also do other exercises that help the young person to really find out their identity, what's important to me, what are my go-to activities,
Right.
what are my
Yeah.
go-to activities when I feel down. When you feel stressed, or if you feel really down or anything like that, you should do something that basically invokes more of the spiritual side of you, so
Hmm.
that it can balance it out. Or if you're physically completely stuffed, you've done loads of sport, you need to do something that is working with your emotional body. So it could be sleeping, or it could be resting, or taking a bath or something. There are things that us as adults know kind of straight away, but kids don't necessarily know that. They need to be taught that they've got things, and they need to find their own go-to things.
Right. Yeah. What actually works for them?
Yeah. So,
If
because some kids like to read, some kids like to do a lot of sport, some kids,
yeah, we
they're
all have our.
finding out what their interests are at that age.
Yeah. I know that there's going to be people that are wanting to, or that'll be curious about what you're actually offering. And if they have questions, are they able to either put them in the comment section here and you're able to answer, or come over to you? Is there a way for them to connect with you?
Okay, so well, my Instagram address is Aya Yoga Experience. That's my Instagram address. I can put my email in the chat so that, you know, if anybody wanted to contact me directly. At the moment, you know, I have this program, and I also have I'm also, you know, developed another program which is a little bit, you know, in line with what you're talking about, but it's also to find have more tools about adolescence. So, but you know, really from just not even from a scientific or from a theoretical sort of perspective, really from a practical perspective. So this particular program is called Cool. Cool is a confident, original, outstanding leader for young people.
Yeah.
That's the program. And it's basically about taking a step back in time. So stepping back to when you were an adolescent, stepping back to when you didn't have all the answers. How did you feel? How do you remember feeling?
Yeah.
What was your environment like when you were a kid? Who were your role models? Who were the people that you were influenced by? Because it's really important for us to find out who is influencing them. Who are their role models? Who are the people they're looking up to, and why? And they're not going to be the same ones that we are. They might be like a movie star, because, you know, that's sort of a classic role model, but they're not the same. They're not the same people that we had. So to really try and find that link between ourselves and our young people, and what their influences are, and what they're basically going through.
Right. Exactly. To be able to connect in with them.
Yeah.
Are there any words that you'd want to share with the moms in how they should engage, or just the way, not should engage, because we don't have to should anything, but like how we could frame that phase of our kids' lives, how we should think about it?
I think that you know, I don't think that you should act any differently. I don't think that there's a special way that someone should act. I think that knowledge is power, and I think that educating oneself on what, you know, again, what the scientifically proven things are. Go and have a look at what people are saying about adolescence, and what's happening in the brain, and what is happening in the body, and so basically being able to answer any questions, and just being there for them, and you know, continuing on with that connection. Keep connecting, keep connecting, because even though they think they're big, and even though they think that they're bad, and they think that they're, you know, whatever, they're actually, as I said before, can revert back to a child in a millisecond.
Yeah.
Something happens, they're crying on your shoulder, and you know, that happens for years after. That happens till the age of 25 at least.
Yeah.
And it still happens to us now with our mothers. But it's something that connection is precious.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that it always comes back to connection every single time. Yeah, it's the beautiful privilege of doing what we're doing too. But to hold those kids, I don't want to say loosely, but hold them like this instead of like this, because they want to fly. So let them fly, as they do, and then they don't, and then they do, and then they don't, and then finally they will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And you also, as a parent, need to be prepared for that too.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Another whole question, to be able to allow them to go on their way, knowing that you've done your best, and knowing that you've because they're not ours forever. We're here for a moment, and you know, it's what you do in those moments that shape the way they see the world.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for being here all the way from Switzerland.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your confidence in me.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to be able to talk about all that freely.
Yeah.
And
beautiful conversation, and one that I don't go to often enough is really talking about how to connect in to your physical body, and to pay attention to what's going on here. Because this, you know, there are many that have homeschool teens in this group, but there's also just a lot of us moms that are learning to do this 30 years after teenagehood or
Yeah.
5, 10. But yeah, we're learning later and we still need to learn. So if we haven't learned it when we're teens, it's now the time.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So thank you for being here.
And thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.